Hey, everybody. Welcome to Truth Wanted. We search for proof of gods, ghosts, aliens, or any other questionable claims, but we haven't found any yet. Do you have the evidence that we've been looking for? Well, then call us because the show is starting right now. Hello, everybody, and welcome. In case you are new here, this is Truth Wanted. That's a new intro. I get to host that for the first time. My name is Objectively Dan. This is Truth Wanted. It is a live call-in show that happens every single week, Fridays at 7 p.m. Central Time. We talk to people about what they believe and why. If you want to call us, we do have a few open lines here, so come on and get your calls in. It's 512-991-9242, or you can call through your computer at tiny.cc/call-TW. Truth Wanted is a product of the Atheist Community of Austin, a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to the promotion of atheism, critical thinking, secular humanism, and the separation of religion and government. And every single week, I always have a special guest. This week is no different. It's Tom Benson, everybody. Tom Benson, welcome to the program.
Hey, thank you for having me. It's honor to be here.
Tommy. Can I call you Tommy? What do you like? Tom? Timothy?
Anything.
Tom Nation? Nothing? And I mean, like just Tom, maybe just Tom.
Simple.
Just Tom. Let's go with just Tom. Tom, how are you doing?
Sunshine and rainbows today.
Great. Tom, if you could give a brief intro to who you are for our audience today, that would be a great thing to hear.
For sure. My name is Tom Benson. I've been a longtime fan and listener of the show here. And I actually run my own podcast. You can find us at www.howeverwegothere.com or www.howeverwegothere.com. We have two domains, both work. And been doing that for 8 years now, talking about similar subjects. So I thought there was some great crossover between the two shows and talk to y'all. And here I am.
Yeah. That's how it works sometimes, folks. People are like, how do you pick your guests? Sometimes it's just an email conversation and it just kind of happens. So that's what's happening here today. But Tom, I'm glad you got to be here on the show today. And before we get to today's show, we've been doing this thing called We Want the Truth, WWTT. It's kind of like WWJD, but WWTT, I guess. You know, it's not the 90s anymore. They're not doing the what would Jesus do thing. I should get one of those bracelets, though. I feel like if I wore one on the show, at least one person would point it out. So maybe next time I will do that. But as you guys know, each week we are asking you, the audience, a question that you can respond to in the comment section of the video. Then we pick our favorite 3 responses and show them at the beginning of the next episode, and then give you a new question for next week. So last week's question, we asked you, complete the sentence. What is the worst thing you can say to a conspiracy theorist? And we're going to show you our favorite answers. Number 3, if we get it here on screen in just a second. There we go. Former Christian writes, worst thing I could say to a conspiracy theorist, Paul really is dead, man. And yeah, I think so. I think if you just tell him, hey, I just think he's dead, that's just going to drive him crazy. You know what this is referring to, Tom?
I have no idea.
This is the Paul is dead theory. This is the Beatles. Paul McCartney is actually secretly dead. Have you ever heard about this?
I haven't.
Paul McCartney was allegedly killed and replaced in his lifetime in the career of the Beatles. Okay, and if you look at the cover of Abbey Road, there's supposed to be secret symbology to that. You know, the cover of Abbey Road's very famous cover. Each one of the Beatles is walking across Abbey Road, the street, and they're all wearing different clothing. Like one of them's supposed to represent the priest, another one the guy who's dressed up as Paul. It's not actually Paul, according to the conspiracy theories. It's supposed to be like the body, and then somebody else is like a gravedigger. It's a whole thing. People have been saying Paul McCartney's dead for years, and of course it's not true. I mean, like, you know, it wasn't true at the time. So yeah, that's a thing that's been out there. That's an old one too.
I'd never heard that before. That's a really interesting.
If you Google that, and you'll go down a really crazy rabbit hole of a lot of people saying Paul McCartney said. But you know, they say that about a lot of famous people in bands that get replaced and stuff. I think like Paul McCartney's probably the most famous iteration of that though. Maybe Elvis. Elvis might be the most famous, and then maybe Paul McCartney. I don't know. Could be one or the other. But number two of our favorite responses is here. It's on screen now. It's from Andreas K. The worst thing to say to a conspiracy theorist is that is exactly what they want you to think. And it's true. You can say this to like anything. Oh, you think the earth is flat? That's what they want you to think. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, yeah,
that's actually a psyop. The
yeah.
conspiracy theory you believe is the real psyop. What do you think of that, Tom?
Well, you go down to it, and you can, like you said, you can fight any argument with this because that's what they want you to think about what they think, right? You're
Exactly.
believing the nonsense. I don't
No,
know.
I mean, well, I mentioned the flat Earth thing, but one of our, a few weeks ago, we had a show that was pretty much dedicated to talking to some flat earthers that called in, and one of them said that look, there are people that are in the flat Earth community that are actually psyops themselves, that they're there to make the rest of the flat Earth community look bad. I mean, like that is a thing that people will put out there, not just about the flat Earth community, but like UFO community stuff like that. So something to think about, you know. Our number one answer this week, though, is going to be from William Meck, who says the worst thing to say to a conspiracy theorist is anything that makes them think you're interested. Which, come on, guys. Listen, I get it. For the average person, they don't want to listen to this stuff. I am just weirdly obsessed with all things weird. And I love talking to people about this stuff. I wouldn't be doing this show if I didn't think it was the most interesting thing in the world to me. Tom, I have a feeling you feel the same way, right? Like you enjoy talking to people about out there sort of weird ideas, right?
Well, I feel like we've all been there. Like we've all
Yeah.
experienced this where you come to the realization of like, oh wow, that was a bunch of nonsense that I
Yeah.
believed back there, and what a colossal waste of time and energy and all of that.
Yeah.
And I feel like that moment when you can get people there, at least if you can help move them in that direction and just provide them that insight,
Hmm.
it's a beautiful thing because it's progress. And this one makes me think. I got a book from my dad because I argue with him about the JFK assassination, and it's
Uh,
always like we could spend days just back and forth, and I don't move him in any way, and yet for Christmas I get a JFK conspiracy book, and it's like there's no amount of this that you're understanding that is going to convince me of it
yeah.
because I just
He
can't
gets
get
you a
there.
new book every year.
Oh, there's thousands of them
Yeah, I
on
was
the
gonna say, so
JFK
like,
thing.
how many are there? Because like, there can only be so many books about a subject, right? But I guess there's a lot about that one,
And there
huh?
can only be one thing that happened, right? It only happened
Yeah,
one way. And
I
yet,
don't.
yeah.
Well, I don't know. Yeah, I guess that's true too, right? Because like, you have the theorists out there, but then they all have different ideas. I wonder what is the most popular, like, obviously besides the accepted theory, right? I wonder which one is the most popular. Do you know?
Of the JFK thing,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, no, I don't because
Mm.
I get on these tangents.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so if you were to ask my dad what's the most popular, it's it's the medical evidence. Look, what happened
Yeah.
in
Okay.
Dallas and the autopsy, what the eyewitnesses reported is different than what we learned in Virginia, right, where they
Yeah.
took the
Yeah.
body for the official autopsy.
Mm.
So
Mm.
I'm supposed to believe that that's just not chaos and confusion and eyewitness testimony versus documents, photographs, and all of that, and that they in front of hundreds of people they mutilated the body. All the
Right.
generals agreed on it. Nobody said a word about it. The ones that have, oh, they're gone. And
Mm.
it could be that could be the case. It just seems
Yeah.
excessive,
They,
right?
there is a museum in Dallas. I've been to it. Of at the site where JFK was assassinated, where you can like, actually look at the grassy knoll. You can actually go up to the spot where Lee Harvey Oswald shot his gun and stuff. It was a old textbook like warehouse that they've converted into a museum there basically. It's very interesting to see. And they got like replica newspapers of like the day after that you can buy and stuff. And they address a lot of the theories there and talk about like the evidences for each one. It's really fascinating, but I haven't been there for years. So anybody who's been there recently, what was your experience like? Is it still cool? Because I remember it being pretty cool. But that was before I did this show. That was years and years ago. Well, anyway, thank you to everybody for submitting your answers for last week's question. I'm having a lot of fun with these question of the week segments. I hope you guys are too. So we're going to go ahead and give you the prompt for this week. So this week is another complete the sentence. Wrong answers only. If you come back as a ghost, what is the first thing you would do? So I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys would do as a ghost. Before we move on, Tom, what would you do if you came back as a ghost?
I'd probably go tell someone so that we could prove it and just get a photo of me, you know?
You would just be like, I need to
I'm
show
here.
people I even exist.
Yeah. I'm here. We did it. Finally.
Yeah.
Let's get
Yeah.
some proof of this. We'll show the world.
That's really funny. Yeah, no, I get I think you've convinced me. That's probably something I would, you know what? I would fuck around a little bit though. I think I'd fuck around a little bit before I do that, but eventually I would get to that. I'd feel in my heart I'd want to know. First of all, if I died tomorrow, I'd haunt all of my friends. I would just like do little things. I would do the stereotypical stuff where I would like move stuff out of place, and then I get to like bigger and bigger stuff. But yeah, I'd fuck with them for a little bit at least. But
Yeah.
yeah.
You know, it's interesting. They never like in the movies, it's always like some terrifying, haunted, coming at you type of deal. But
Mhm.
in the eyewitness reports or like the camera ones that they get on camera, it's always like some lady in a dress just
Yeah.
walking in an adjacent room, right? Just
Yeah.
slightly past.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I'm always struggling to see which one's more likely.
I wonder what I like, so that's another question I have because would I die in like a hoodie? Would I have like headphones? Would I have access to like a phone? Could I listen to music if I wanted to?
Yeah,
Like
what's there to do?
what is there to do? Yeah, am I just walking around? Am I sleeping most of it? Do I even sleep? I don't know. I don't know how ghost physics works or like ghost livelihood or deadlyhood, I guess, because you're not really alive. I don't know how it works, but I'd be curious to know. So anyway, Tom, I'm so glad you're here with me today. And folks at home, I had COVID last week. I could not
Hmm.
host, but I had COVID and I also moved. I am in a new house. So those of you who notice maybe my audio sounds a bit different, maybe I look a little bit different. I'm in a brand new space. I'm no longer doing this from an apartment closet. I don't have to hear the jokes anymore of me being trapped in the closet because I'm now in an office space slash studio space here in a house. And it's really, really great. So yeah, and also I adopted a new cat, who I cannot show on camera yet because he is very shy and doesn't like being picked up yet. But in the next coming weeks, you folks at home will meet a new cat on the show. Felix Navidad is his official adopted name. We might change it. I kind of want to change it to Zangief from like Street Fighter because he punched me the other day and I've never been punched by an animal so hard in my goddamn life, and it was awesome. But yeah, Zangief slash Felix Navidad. Well, I don't know. We'll see where we go with that. But anyway, folks at home, thank you all for the well wishes and stuff that you sent me while I was sick. But I'm back and I'm here with Tom. Tom, you are a cool dude. You are a skeptical dude. You're a podcast dude. Tom, have you always been the person that you are today, or were you once a believer of other things?
Oh, certainly. I've been on
Mm,
the spectrum, believing all sorts of stuff. I grew up Catholic, if that's any indication.
yeah.
So, you know, it was a combination in high school of taking mythology, psychology, and sociology all at like the same time. And then you go, oh no, you guys, you you taught me all the wrong stuff. Don't
Yeah.
you see?
Did you go to Catholic school?
No, I mean, we
Okay.
did the catechism and all that fun stuff, and I'm like, you know, what is it when when you're like 16 and you're like, oh, I'm super Catholic. I'm gonna pick a saint that I'm gonna be named after. Someone knows this. Do we have a fact checker?
I don't know. Didn't grow up Catholic. Happy St. Patrick's Day today, by the
Oh,
way.
thank you.
Confirmation is what the crew is telling us. Confirmation.
Confirmation. That's right.
Yeah.
Great job, team.
Mhm.
Confirmation. Jeremiah. I picked that. You know why? Saint
Why?
Jeremiah. His story. I don't either. I just like Jeremiah Johnson, the 1972 Sidney Pollack flick with Robert Redford.
And that's why
So
you chose it. That's great.
yeah,
I love that.
yeah.
That's really awesome. So Tom, you are you have your podcast now. What do you do on your podcast?
We talked to guests from all over the place, from
Mhm.
YouTubers to congressmen to professional kayak bass fisherman Drew Gregory, if you're familiar with him.
Of course, I know all of his work. I've never heard that name in my life, to be honest
Oh,
with you,
okay.
but
Oh,
yeah.
it's the star and producer of Hooked on Wild Waters with Drew Gregory. You've never heard of this?
No, I
Get the
haven't.
fact
I'm
checkers on
missing
it.
out. Listen, I haven't, the kayak world and I are not in the same spheres of influence, so, maybe I need to get on that.
There's some crossover between the two communities here.
Yeah, I guess there is now, you telling me this, but well, cool, well, cool. So, yeah, glad you get to be, on here today, and, you got to interview some ACA folks recently as well, right?
I did.
Yeah. Yeah, you should talk about that. Who'd you get to talk to?
Oh, when I was like, haven't yeah, Katie and Greg
Yeah, yeah, Katie and Greg well, you also got to talk to Kelly a little bit too.
just now.
Um,
Oh, yeah. That's what you're
yeah.
talking about.
Oh, no, yeah, no, you contacted us, and then, we will maybe see about maybe getting some of our folks on your show more in the future as well. But yeah, very cool, very glad that you get to be here. What kind of calls are you looking forward to today, Tom?
You know what? Anybody who seems like they're resonating. If you're feeling the tenor of the show so far, call in. Let's chat about it. But I don't think we should. Let's let the callers determine that.
I agree. I agree. It's a democratic process. You know, it's by the people. The callers get to determine what happens. But if you could pick like one topic that somebody could call in about, what would you want somebody to call in about?
A single topic. I don't know. We
Yeah.
were just talking about JFK. I'm sort of
Yeah.
up to speed on
You
that
know
sort of
what?
stuff.
That'd be cool, actually. I don't think we've talked about JFK in a long time on this show. I'd be down to
Okay.
talk about some JFK. Folks at home, if you believe that JFK was actually murdered by aliens, my favorite is not a real theory, but I really like to listen to Behind the Bastards by Robert, what's his last name? Can't remember. Anyway, it's a great podcast, but he has this idea he threw out one time, which I think is the funniest idea in the world, which is that Bernie Sanders actually killed JFK. He doesn't actually believe it, but and of course Bernie Sanders would be a young man at the time. But I really like the idea of old man Bernie Sanders, like up, like up at the warehouse with a sniper rifle, like ready to go. For some reason, that is like the funniest mental image in the world to me. Because Birdie is who he is, but like, yeah, Robert Evans from Behind the Bastards came up with that idea, and I really like that. But anyway, I think it's about time we start talking to some of the folks at home. So folks, we're ready to talk to you. Remember, you can call into the show at 512-991-9242 or visit tiny.cc/call TW to do that. But of course, as always, before we get to our calls, I have to thank the patron of the week, because every single week we always give a shout out to the folks who support the show on patreon.com. And that's tiny.cc/patreon TW if you're interested. Of course, I want to thank everybody who donates to the show, but we always like to give at least a one shout out every single week. And this week's patron of the week is going to be Colson Craig. Thank you so much, Colson Craig. And thank you, of course, to everybody who donates. You guys rock. Okay, now officially, Tom, we can finally get to the show. And we have, I think, an interesting first call here. We have Will, who's calling in from Indiana. Will, you are live on Truth Wanted. What's going on?
Not much, guys. Not much. How about you?
Cool.
I've been a long time watcher of the show, and I haven't called in. But I tried to call in one time before about something, and I might get to that. But my primary topic of today is: have you ever heard of a UFO document called the Davis-Wilson Notes?
Yes. Okay.
Hmm.
So, I'll admit this. I had to refresh my memory because you called in right before the show, and I could see the call screener wrote it down, and I was like, "What is this?" But then I remembered, because this is like what this is, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Will, is a supposedly a document that alleges a conversation between a U.S. admiral and somebody else,
Yes,
talking about a classified extraterrestrial program that the U.S. government has
correct.
in like researching extraterrestrial technology. That's what it is, right?
It is, yes.
Okay.
The military official in question is Rear Admiral Thomas Wilson.
Yeah.
He was the head of the Defense Intelligence Agency for quite a while, and the document has I sent the email, the actual documentation, the 15-page memo that was actually entered into the record in a congressional hearing, which is actually where I sourced this particular copy from. There's a listing in there there's in the text. It says that Wilson contacted a different office to get read into the program, because that's how they talk. They said they read you into programs, and it was a major that answered the phone, which is several grades below his pay grade, and basically flatly denied him access to the program and hung up on him, and he was furious. And he never really got access to anything apart from someone basically saying, "You're right, but you're not. You don't need to know." Basically.
Yeah.
So
Interesting. I didn't know about that part.
I'd heard of that.
Yeah. So this is something. The reason why it rang familiar to me, Will, is because I keep up a little bit with the UFO community and stuff, right? Just like on the outskirts, right? And they have very popular topics of conversation, right, that happen in different events and stuff. And this is one of those documents that comes up, because this is a conversation that allegedly happened in like 2002, but I don't think people were talking about it till like a couple years ago. And like, it's one of those things where even UFO people are skeptical as to whether or not this is legit, right? Like, at least that's what I've seen. And they've done interviews with a lot of different people from U.S. intelligence and other committees who have all said, like, yeah, this is BS. But of course, that's what they want you to think, right? Like, you can kind of go through that whole well, they're going to be the ones to deny it, right? Yeah, go ahead.
One thing that adds veracity for me for the whole thing is Edgar Mitchell. He was an Apollo era astronaut who was not afraid about any of these people, what they're going to do to him or whatnot. He would go to anyone that would listen and basically tell them, yes, we were being observed up there. Those 2 minutes, in the original Apollo broadcast, where they switched over to the medical channel, reportedly they are saying they're up here, we're being watched.
Yeah. So wait, has Edgar Mitchell actually said that? Has Edgar Mitchell actually said that? Really? Because that's the first I heard about it.
From what I've been exposed to in this topic that for the last like 10 years. He would basically tell anyone who would listen that this stuff is real.
Really? Okay, that'd be news to me. Maybe I need to do more of my research. For those of you who don't know at home, I got to give context, right, Will? Okay, so if you ever watch the original Apollo footage, right, original Apollo launches and stuff, there are times where, of course, like, you can hear ground control talking to the astronauts, right? But there are several minutes at which you actually can't hear them because they switch to a channel that's not accessible to the public. And so there's been a lot of speculation as to what exactly happens in those conversations. Of course, when you're in space, right, there could be a couple different things. If you have information that may be related to military intelligence or maybe related to technologies and stuff that or that other foreign powers wouldn't want you to know that you have, that could be a reason why you'd want to change. Maybe you're reporting on something very personal that you don't want to go to the public. There's a million different reasons why that wouldn't happen. There's open speculation that, of course, they're talking about aliens in some of these conversations. Do with that information as you will, but just, giving background context there. Will, so like, again, going back to this original thing here, talking about these documents, I have no idea whether or not there are secret programs within the government researching extraterrestrials or extraterrestrial technology. I have a feeling, though, like, if there are, it would affect the way that we do things out in space, right? It would affect the way that we actually reach out and communicate, because like NASA goes out into space and like does stuff and also sends signals out and stuff. And it seems like either we wouldn't know that or they wouldn't do that if we already had contact with aliens. I don't know. Or maybe that's just a side up too. I don't know. It doesn't seem like the way that NASA currently operates makes any sense if we already had access to aliens. You know what I'm saying?
I understand. Yeah, but see, then you get even further into a rabbit hole of a secret space program, which I don't go that deep.
But Will,
if
listen.
I could just make a quick pivot to the JFK thing.
Oh, pivot to JFK. Wait a minute. Hold on. We gotta slow it. We gotta keep.
It's real quick. I promise you, it's real quick.
Will, you got 10 seconds. I don't know where this is going. And then I gotta let Tom speak because Tom's been listening to us talk about this and he's like bewildered right now. I can see the look on his face.
Tom, I really do.
I don't know if he was ready for this, but Tom's here now. So welcome to Truth Wanted, Tom. This is how we go deep in the paint. Anyway, Will, you got like 10 seconds.
Okay. Documentary on Amazon Prime that I saw. An Australian investigator was hired to go through the whole JFK thing. And from what he discovered, with the seats on the limo that JFK and the governor were using, that the seats that the governor and his wife used were set inward and down from the position of the president and his wife. And based on that geometry, the magic bullet thing is completely blown out of the water. The geometry actually works. The trajectory actually works to hit all of them at once. Hit the governor and the president. And from what he's saying, and what he could determine was that when Oswald shot, right, it caused a panic, and the motorcade lurched. If you look behind the president, there is a Secret Service member standing in a vehicle with an M16. And he's thinking that when the motorcade went, it lurched. This man lost his feet and fired by accident and clipped the president. Their autopsy and all that is to cover it up.
You got a full-blown laugh from Tom over here.
Oh, I'm sorry. No. I mean, that's no, it was an accident. That's the first one. So Dan, you're like, what's the most popular? I've never heard this one. It was an accident by some Secret Service guy, and they're like, you know what? That was a really big fuck up. And we gotta cover this up for decades and decades and decades. And doesn't that also mean that Oswald still shot them? Like you're saying he did that, and then they unnecessarily covered it up.
Oswald shot, and then another guy.
He was always a patsy. It was meant to scare Kennedy. It wasn't to kill him.
It was meant to scare him.
Oh, man.
Bullets. Dude, find some other way. Why make it so needlessly complicated? And then it's like a Laurel and Hardy bit where it's like the gun falls and shoots him in the head.
Stuff. Man,
But to me, it's a whole lot more plausible than some kind of giant conspiracy.
Well,
I think
it is.
I think the most plausible is that Lee Harvey Oswald shot JFK. Like, I think that's the most plausible. Right?
You've heard this thing, Will. You probably heard this thing, like the Occam's razor, right? It's the idea that includes the least number of assumptions. And the one you just had was great because it was like a comical number of assumptions that we have to get there.
The chat saying M16 is not pretty well. An M16 like rifle. Excuse me, chat. But anyway, the documentary was on Amazon Prime. I don't know if it still is. It's worth a watch at least. To see if they're probably going to present the evidence a whole lot better than I did.
For sure.
I'll let you guys go ahead and go. But nice talking to you both. And if I have another topic, I'll give it a call some other day.
All right. Well, we'll see you later then, Will. Damn, he's just going to leave us like that. He's going to drop that bomb and be like, that's it. I'm out. We didn't even get to talk about the alien stuff as much, though. But Tom, like, thoughts on that call? What do you think? We went some places there. We traveled.
Yeah,
we went.
That was up and down, left and right, and all that.
Yeah.
I don't understand. Like, I'm a big fan of like the specifics.
Yeah.
Right. So he's talking about that document. Obviously, you did some research on it. What is it? What does it tell us? He said it was a memo, or what's the situation?
It is a memo of the admiral talking to somebody else about classified UFO like programs within the government, right? And it was it's alleged that this was real, right? That this isn't just fake and this isn't just a fiction, because it is a document that you can look at. It's like 15 pages of notes. Right.
What did they say? What's is it the memo of I called and they said no?
It's a conversation. Yeah, it's a conversation, and them telling the admiral about this program. To my knowledge, I believe that that's what it is, right? And so like obviously people have been interviewed about it and have denied it and stuff. But the weird like the thing is, I mean, like there have been black programs, right? There are things like
Sure.
Guantanamo Bay is a place where shit happens, right? And so like
Hmm.
there are people who can't talk about that. Um, uh, so like obviously there are secret programs. Are they alien related? Again, it probably like the reason why I don't think so is one, we have a very public space administration that whose budget gets like slashed all the time. Like if you remember, even in the Obama administration, it got like super slashed, and who like would be the primary source of all of our contact with UFOs. Like it would be weird to have NASA as an entity and then have another program that's like secret just for like UFO stuff. Like I don't know. I feel like to me that doesn't make as much sense, especially the way that we treat astronauts. Again, like if we're shooting people up into space to go get stuff and do stuff, I don't know. If we were afraid that aliens were going to shoot us down, we wouldn't do that, right? Unless we have some contact with them already. I don't know.
Well, I think you got to consider too. It's not just ours. It's everybody else's, right?
Yeah,
Like that. We're all shooting stuff into space. We're going into space. We're
yeah,
hanging out there,
true. And
and
NASA's not the only space program, right?
well,
But
and then consider the alien side of it, right? For whatever
mm,
reason, they're here, and they find these contacts, these deep contacts in the U.S. government, and not only that, world governments across the world, and the aliens agreed. We'll also keep this secret. From time to time, we'll dart out and shit like that, but we're going to keep it completely secret and never reveal ourselves to anyone on a cell phone or a video camera or any of that.
yeah, okay. So yeah, I had to make sure I was telling the story here right. I actually got the details mixed up a bit. Again, it's been a minute since I've seen this. It's the admiral is the one that's being interviewed. The person who's interviewing him is a person named Dr. Eric Davis, who is a physicist. Okay, the admiral himself has said that it's all fiction. The person being interviewed in these notes has said it's fiction, but people have said, oh well, of course he has to say it's fiction because he would get in trouble otherwise. It's one of those things where again you can kind of go in this thing where yeah, every truth is a lie, and you never get anywhere. But yeah, that's the story of this. I haven't thought about this in years. I mean, this is one of those ones. Again, there's a million different uh sort of alleged documents, secret documents for people who have claimed to have worked in some agency or another. It kind of all gets mixed up. I wish somebody called in and talked about the one CIA document of the guy who was doing like astral projection stuff. That's like a weird one. I like that one. But, there's all kinds of like fake documents. Oh, and by the way, one of the things Will mentioned was to lead credibility was that this was entered into Congress. Ted Cruz reading like Dr. Seuss books was also technically entered, into Congress. Like there's a lot of shit that goes into Congress. That doesn't mean a whole lot either, but
Yeah. Yeah, Matt
just
Gates just entered like the Chinese propaganda.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's not as good as it once was to be entered into Congress,
Yeah.
I guess. Not as cool as it used to be. But
It's like being in the background or like getting caught on camera at a ball game and saying I was on TV.
exactly. But Tom, that was a great first call for you to jump in on. And by jump in on, I mean like watch horrifically as it's happening. I could tell by the look on your face. That was really funny. Real quickly before we get to our next call, though, just to remind you guys at home, supporting us on Patreon is a great way to get your name shouted out on the show if you like that, but also just to support us in different ways. But there's another way you can support the show, and that's by becoming a member. If you want to do that, you get emojis in the chat. You get your name highlighted, and you'll be immune to chat timeouts. And that's for as little as 99 cents per month to do that. So check that out because that's a really simple and cool thing that you should do. And thank you to everybody who's watching this live right now in the chat. You guys are cool. I'll just go ahead and read this one here too. For those of you who aren't aware, you should be aware. We do have a store and it is up and running. And of course, we have a special t-shirt that we're doing every single month where it's a limited item. So it's only to be available for that month unless we have special events like we did in December where we released all the year's t-shirts. But this one says Bigfoot saw me and nobody believed him. Classic little phrase there. I've definitely heard that one before, but we got it in a t-shirt for you. So check that out if you want to support us. And of course, all the other swag, t-shirts, hoodies, all the stuff that you can get And last but not least, before we move on, if you want to hear our content in audio only form, you can do that by going to tiny.cc/AEN podcasts for all of the latest ACA shows. If you're like Tom, we like our audio, right, Tom? We're podcast people, you know. Yeah, so check all that out if you want to listen to the show rather than watch. I usually listen to all the other shows. I like to put it on while I'm doing other stuff. That's kind of how I roll.
100% dishes. Have you ever done dishes without listening to a
Absolutely.
podcast?
I mean, it's a staple. It's a
Yeah.
staple. It should be a staple in American households everywhere. Podcast listening should be mandatory while listening to dishes.
I specifically structure it just so that I can, I leave the cereal in the bowls for extra time so that it's more difficult to have to soak them for a little bit before I scrub the cereal bowl clean. So I get more time to listen to the podcasts.
Yeah, that's everybody has their things, and that's your thing, Tom, and I respect that to the extent that I can. So thank you for sharing. Let's go and move on to our next call here. Oh man, you're in for a good show today, Tom. We have a slave of Christ who is calling in from Texas. Slave of Christ, you are live on Truth Wanted. What's going on?
Hi, Dan. How are you guys?
Doing good. How are you doing, Slave of Christ? SoC.
I'm doing I'm doing good.
Okay.
I wanted to talk about the correlation between food consumption and sexual being hypersexual. And I recently found out that junk food consumption rate has been increasing, especially in the United States and the Western world, and that has some correlation with sexual behavior. So that's what I was willing to talk about for today.
Okay, what is the correlation?
The correlation. So over the generations, the consumption of junk food has been increasing, and the CDC just released for how much % of Americans are actually consuming this kind of foods. So it has been increasing over the generations. And also we could see there's a rate of increasing number of Americans being affiliated in different sexual activities. So it's kind of
I feel like
correlated.
I don't know why. Is this a study that you've seen? Is this several studies? Where do you get this from?
I just found it out on the CDC website. So if you go
The
to
CDC website.
Well, all right. Slave of Christ, hold on a sec. Because it's really interesting. I've only heard you on 1.5 speed before because you've called into a lot of these shows. So it's really interesting to be sitting in this seat now talking to you. You're somewhat famous in my eyes. But on this one specifically, what are you going for here? Like, what do you mean, I guess?
What I mean is there has been a data that actually shows that a lot of Americans are actually the amount of people actually buying these foods is increasing. So that's actually worrisome when you think about health, when you think about a lot of activities. So
sure,
that's what I was to say.
Yeah. I don't know.
So listen, I'm Googling this. I can't find anything from the CDC that says anything you're talking about. But if anything, Slave of Christ, I would think it's the opposite. First of all, of course, there's people that are eating junk food probably now more than any other point in human history, right? I think that's fair to say within the last 10, 20 years. I mean, maybe it's gone down in the last 10 or something. I don't know, but it's still high, right? Still a lot of people. Everything I've seen about Gen Z and younger generations is that they have less sexual partners than previous generations, right? I mean, that I think that's been like a talking point in sociology circles for a couple of years, people speculating as to why that is. And on top of that, like, I don't know, when I eat junk food, I don't think it ups my sex drive. If anything, it helps, like, increase my chance of obesity. And like, I think I'm more sexually active, or at least more interested in sex when I am healthier, when I'm not eating junk food. So like, I don't know if this is true. And if it is, I feel like that's a weird thing to believe. And also, I don't know. I just don't know. I don't know why you want to call me about it, but like, that's interesting topic, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. I guess that's what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah.
what's going on, man?
Yeah.
What I mean by that is, I know you guys don't actually believe that there's a God, or you don't believe that the Bible is credible. But I'm just showing this to actually prove that the Bible is actually correct on its dietary laws. So if you go Leviticus 17, it talks about God giving certain instructions, and the Israelites were not permitted to eat a certain food. And when you actually go down, it talks about certain types of food that are considered unclean. But when you go to the next passage, it talks about sexual activities. So I think there's like a correlation between the two of the passages that you see in Leviticus 17 and Leviticus 18, because in the original, the Bible didn't have a chapter or verses. Chapter and verses are just made up so that people could understand the Bible more. And the second thing is when you go to the New Testament, Acts, the 15th chapter of Acts, it talks about, the Jewish people were like forcing Gentiles to keep the law. And Peter and James were saying that they shouldn't keep the law of Moses. Instead, they should stay away from certain foods that is sacrificed for the idols. And the next verse, it says they have to flee from fornication. So there's obvious correlation that you see in the Bible.
It also says in Romans 14 that all food is clean, but it is wrong for a man to eat anything that causes someone else to stumble. It is better not to eat meat or drink wine or do anything else that will cause your brother to fall. But it does say all food is clean. I mean, this was a debate in like the times, right? As to like, were Christians supposed to be following the law in the sense of Jewish dietary, descriptions? And this was like a contention between Peter and Paul, because they didn't agree. They didn't agree about like circumcision stuff, and this is another thing they didn't agree about. I mean, like, we can talk about the corpus of literature in the Hebrew Bible that talks about diets and what's good for you and what's bad. But like, I still want to go back to this thing. Like, you say that there's this study posted by the CDC, which I've yet to find, that says there's a junk food correlation with sexual drive. And you think this demonstrates the truth of the Bible, because there is some passages in the Bible that could be interpreted as to the cleaner you eat, the less of a sex drive that you'll have. I mean, talk about jumping to conclusions, right? Like, don't you think there has to be a little bit more groundwork that has to be established before you say, well, this one CDC study just totally validates everything that the Bible says? I mean, you see where I'm coming from here?
Where the CDC doesn't show the correlation, it just says junk food consumption is just increasing. That's all the study says. It doesn't say that it causes people to,
in other words, it doesn't support your point at all, because your point was that junk food increases sexuality.
I'm not saying it increases sexuality. What I'm saying is it increases hypersexual characters. So I think that's why people be led to fornicating. And
all right, hold on. I got one for you. So think about this. Just go back in time with me, right? Think about like 150 years ago or something like that. 150 years is 1870 something?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Okay. 1873.
Yeah, 1873.
Yeah. Okay. Are you there? Have we studied the books? You're familiar with this period in time?
1873.
Familiar.
Okay, well, so I guess I don't want to go into Reconstruction in the 1870s because I don't know that much about it. But suffice to say, at this time, things still weren't great for lots of folks out there here in the United States. That maybe women, for example, couldn't vote. Huh? That's a simple one. We can just stick with that.
Yeah.
We're talking about a study that we're mashing together on these two things, that like these things changed and one is leading to the other. And that very well could be the case. But I ask you this, in the 1870s, when there were things going on, that no civil rights, there's still horrible things going on in the 1870s, no modern medicine. Do you think there was more rape back then, or is there more now as an absolute value? Not as absolute, sorry, as like a ratio, right? Because back then there's, not only are you not voting as a woman, you don't have a voice in court, right? There's no one's getting convicted for sexual assault or anything like that. So are you saying that things were better back then, and you were probably like more, there are fewer sexual deviants and this behavior being encouraged than there is nowadays? Today's worse from that side?
No, that's not what I'm saying. First of all, I don't think that rape is a good thing. I think it's a very evil thing. So if a lot of rape,
but the Bible says some things about it, not necessarily condemning it.
I know you're speaking about Deuteronomy 22, but that is a law for property and slaves. So it actually says that you can sell your daughter to other Hebrew. That's what it is saying.
Right.
So
Cool.
It specifically allows
much better
for you.
It's like a diet book and parenting book and like all this great stuff.
Yeah,
that's great.
Look,
what I'm saying is, in the Hebrew Bible, you could actually, in the Old Testament, you could actually sell your children. It doesn't only apply for your daughter, by the way, but specifically that law is about if a person is desiring your daughter, you could just sell her. That's what it's saying. So
right. Did they update that?
Yeah. Do you think that's okay? Because like, why are we sticking to the diet? But like that part, seems a little sus.
Well, I don't think there's unclean food. I think all food is clean, as Paul said it. Yeah. I don't think it's a sin to eat certain types of food, which are condemned in the Old Testament. But what I think is there has to be a limit to how you actually eat. So if you just like, if you suffer with gluttony, you're going to like fall into sin, specifically like sexual sin. That's what I think it is.
Specifically, why do we keep going back to like, it's specifically sexual, Dan?
I don't know, because there's some the skinniest people I know, the people who don't eat the most are often the most sexually active. So I don't know, again, this like, I mean, that's anecdote, right? But like, if we're just going to make this, again, causal argument based on, again, the CDC study you cited, by the way, says, yeah, more people are eating junk food now. Okay. Yeah, that's fine. I'm willing to accept that. But we haven't jumped to this other premise, which is, then that's making people more sexually active. Like that's the other thing you're saying here.
He's saying deviant, right? It's leading to sexual deviancy.
Deviant? Is that just code word for homosexual? Are you just complaining? Do you think more people are homosexual now because
we're putting it together?
Yeah. Is that what you mean?
You're calling with this nutrition advice and sexual wellness, and all of a sudden we're figuring the whole thing out.
What is that what you mean, Slave of Christ? Is that people are gay now because they eat junk food?
I mean, it's just like there's the word of God, and there's like a human desire, right? So if you fall into your lust, you'll go to hell, right? So in order for you to keep the laws of God, you have to be not a slave of anything. So if you're like a slave of food, Satan is going to like try to tempt you with like controlling your flesh. That's why Bible says don't commit your lust of the flesh, because in the end.
Are you saying? I'm going to take this as a yes. I'm assuming this is a yes. Are you saying if you struggle with food, if you eat more than the average person, you're more likely to be gay?
No, that's not what I'm saying. So
Okay.
there's no correlation between sexual orientation and, being straight or whatever. So I don't
Okay.
think there's any holy sexual orientation. So even you being, if you're straight, doesn't mean you're holy. If you're gay, it doesn't mean you're unclean. It just
Okay.
depends on how you're acting. So even though you're straight and you're fornicating, you're still like you're committing sin. So it doesn't
Really?
actually matter.
Why?
I'm sorry.
Wait, so
Like why?
I'm sorry.
Like so I guess that's we were talking about this when you were talking about this like earlier, right? It sounds like what you're doing is you're kind of picking and choosing the things that you believe out of this, because I don't know, were you condoning before that I can sell my daughter, but it's cool because I can also sell my son? Like, oh, okay, equality, right? Can your parents sell you? Is that okay? They haven't
well,
updated the book.
yeah, I mean that's another thing to talk about too, right? I mean, like, what makes this? Why follow these specific portions of the Bible, but not follow, like, if I sold my son tomorrow, I don't have a son, slave of Christ, but if I had a son and I sold it tomorrow, would you be okay with that? Like, would you think that that's okay if I followed it based on what the Old Testament said I
Yeah.
could do?
So we're not under the old covenant, so I wouldn't probably be okay with it because we are under Jesus Christ, right? Christ
Yeah.
brought the New Testament. Right?
Right, but
Yes.
there's no point where they
Right.
updated it and said that's
Well-
the case. Don't worry about all this stuff back
Well, hang
here.
on. I think slave of Christ is an advocate for new covenant theology. Okay, and if that's the case, all right, that's fine. But the new covenant theology, all that says is there's rules you don't have to follow anymore. It doesn't say anything about whether or not those rules were good or not, right? So the rules were still there. It said I could do these things. If it says I could do this and it's covered under the old law, there's nothing in the new law that says I can't do it, right? There's nothing in the New Testament that says that. So if I do it, am I still okay?
I mean, here's what I think. So
Yeah.
if you're fulfilling the law and it with intention of being righteous, so the law. By the way, can I read this passage?
No.
No.
Sorry, instinct kicking in there.
Tom says
Well-
no. We just want to hear your answer.
It would answer the question. So I could just tell you what I think. So what I think,
Yeah, I want to know what you think.
okay. So what I think is you shouldn't be a slave of the law. You should be a slave of righteousness, right? So
Sure.
so you don't have to do the works of the law anymore, because when Jesus came, he brought us grace and truth,
Yes.
right? So
Yes.
I wouldn't support you if you actually sell your children, because that would be ridiculous. First of all, like we're in the 21st century.
But why wasn't it
I'm sorry.
ridiculous then? Why did morality change?
I think you said because Jesus came.
Right, but did Jesus change the actions of what made something right or wrong?
No, he didn't. But here's what I think. So there were slave owners in the New Testament church, right? So Paul
Yes, there were.
addresses and so Paul first said, slaves, obey your masters. But then the next verse it says, masters, treat your slaves fairly. So we know that in the New Testament church there were slaves who are church members, and there are slave masters or slave owners in the New Testament church. So Paul was just addressing that as a first century person, where if you obey your master at the time, you're serving Christ. So it was like considered ministering to the Lord.
So if I have a slave,
like,
but if slave of Christ, if I own a slave and he's obeying me, he would be obeying the will of Christ, right?
Yes, he's obeying Christ according to that.
And if I follow the rule that Paul says, because Paul says,
Yes.
hey, slave owners, you need to follow Christ. I can still own a slave then, right?
You could, but you couldn't mistreat your slaves because
Oh,
it's
okay.
against God.
Nice.
so I can own a. You are okay if I buy a slave right now,
No, I'm
as
not.
long as I treat.
Nothing.
But wait, why not? Because if I treat him right, there's nothing that Paul says that this is wrong.
It doesn't say treat him right. It says can't mistreat him.
Yeah, can't mistreat him, but it doesn't say don't buy slaves, right? It says treat your slaves right, or don't mistreat them. So
why I think it's unacceptable now is the timeline. So
why is it
during back
unacceptable
then,
now? What immorality
because it's
changed?
against the law. Yeah, morality changed a lot because morality is subjective; it's not objective.
Ooh,
Because,
interesting.
yeah,
So-
morality is not objective.
Okay,
That-
you
so
are the
some-
first.
some of the things that
Slave of Christ. I have to admit, you are the first Christian I have ever heard that has ever said that in my life. I think maybe except for like scholars and academics. I think you're the first Christian that I've ever like actually talked to that has ever said that to me. That morality is subjective. That is interesting. If morality is subjective, then why would we even listen to the Bible for anything?
Even the Bible says that, for example, the Bible says thou shalt not kill, right? But when they'll go to battles, God turns away and says, kill the entire Amalekites, right? So
Yes.
you can see that you can see that the law was subjective even at the time. So if you just follow the morality of the Bible, you're going to end up in a subjective morality. You'll never end up in an objective morality. So following the Bible is not an objective morality. But there are objective moral issues in the Bible. Like there are actions that are not acceptable. You know what I mean?
I feel like you're doing the work for us. I don't know whose side you're on anymore. Wait a minute. Everything you just said is something I would have said to you, and I have said to other callers. So yeah, I'm very confused now.
Like for example, worshiping other gods or idols is never acceptable. So worshiping idols, it's like the first commandment, even in the Old Testament, right? So
hey, do you have? Hold on, slave of Christ. I'm with you on all of this stuff. I gotta ask. What did you have for dinner tonight?
I'm sorry.
What did you have for dinner tonight?
I didn't eat my dinner yet.
Oh, what are you gonna have?
I'm gonna have Ethiopian food.
Nice. Like, are you making it yourself, or are you going to a restaurant?
No, there's actually a prepared food, so I'm just
Where are you
gonna
going with
heat
this?
it up, and I'm just.
You're scaring me here. Where are you going with this?
No, I'm trying to make sure like he's actually hearing us. Like it hasn't been a conversation. Like we're like to your point, he's arguing against himself for us.
I don't. Yeah, at this point, slave of Christ, I don't know what to believe and what. Like I'm going to give you credit here. You have genuinely surprised me. You have said some things that callers have never said to me before today, and that is at least callers who typically take up your position. So I'll give you credit for novelty. I am aghast here. I don't know. Like if I'm still confused because you just said, for example, that worshiping other gods is always bad, but you also said if you follow everything in the Bible that that's a subjective morality. So like I don't know why you would pick and choose and say, well, yeah, this one thing is eternally bad and is always bad, but these other things were bad in the time and place today, but not bad back then. Like why are we picking and choosing this stuff? Why can't we just say it's all picked and choose? Because that's what I think. I think we pick our ethics and understand our ethics based on the knowledge that we have at the time and what benefits the most people and typically what benefits us, right? If morality didn't benefit us in any way whatsoever, most of us wouldn't follow it. And that's just kind of a fact. We trust other people because we want to be trusted to get what we want and everything to it. I mean, obviously people have different ideas about this, right? But like, why again, like, why even go to the Bible for anything if you hold the position that you do, if you can just kind of say, well, yeah, some of that stuff doesn't even matter.
Yeah. What I think is, morality is totally dependent on, I think the source of morality deeply is religious. That's why I think secular and atheist people are more religious and more dogmatic than theist people. So what I think is, if you have any sort of values, you're just religious, but you might not even believe in a God in that kind of sense. So I think
having
all
values,
sorts of morality is
having
religious. Yeah,
having values
all
make
sorts
me
of
religious.
Yeah, because let's say you're driving or you're walking by and you just saw a homeless person, or you just saw some atrocious thing, right? You're probably feel some compassionate, right? The reason why you feel that way is because you know that deep down that person is created in the image of God. So
Well, that's not why I feel that
how
way,
you know that.
actually. I feel that way because I'm a human being that has emotions and desires and interests, and I see another human being that has emotions and desires and interests that aren't being met, that I have, that are being met for me, and so I feel sad that that person doesn't have what I have, you know? Like, that's why I feel that way. It really doesn't have anything to do with God.
That might be your reason, but deep down your heart actually knows that that person is created in the image of God. So that's why you regret when you disrespect other people, or when you feel some kind of like prejudice against someone. You'll probably feel very sad because they are created in the image of God.
Yeah,
But wait, no, actually, I'm sorry, Tom. I have to disagree. Look, I feel sad for animals too, right? Like, I think animals also deserve my empathy, and like, I feel like they should be treated a certain way, and they are explicitly not created in the image of God, right?
So, so the Bible says that a righteous person actually has compassion for animals in Proverbs. So, that's why I think, the God of the Hebrews is source of all moralities, because he has created us in a way that we will balance ourselves.
Okay,
Because
but
if we don't feel this kind of compassion, we would probably,
one thing,
we'll
and
be
then
just like
one thing, and then I gotta let
each other.
Tom speak. Okay, you literally just told me that the reason why I even care about the homeless person on the street is because they were created in the image of God. And here I have brought up an example of something that wasn't created in the image of God that I can feel similar, if not the same feelings towards. And you're telling me, oh, well, that's because righteous people are good towards animals. I mean, like, we're just going all over the place, right? I don't see a consistent through line here. But anyway, Tom, you're dying to speak here. Go for it.
No, I kind of recognize it, because slave of Christ, I indeed used to be a slave of Christ too.
Yeah.
And I know that feeling of like, okay, I have this emotion. I see this person that they need help. I'm in church, I'm singing, like it feels so good and connected, and like those feelings, those emotions are real, and all that fun stuff. The thing is that like they also exist outside of believing all of that.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't have that thing in my head anymore where I'm like talking to someone and like, I hope I got those new tennis shoes. Like they better be size 10 wides. There's no way I'm going to be comfortable unless they are. Like that I don't have that in my head anymore. And I know it sounds like an outrageous thing. I'm just lying. I know it's real, but I'm choosing to ignore it. That's what you were saying before. And I just don't. The thought never occurs to me to think that thought of like, oh, maybe I'm wrong. God's real. Like, I don't even think about that anymore. So I totally understand and believe that like your experience is real. I want to validate that. But at the same time, say, Dan and I, when we see the horrible things, we're not like, like, I don't care, bleeding. Yeah, get care of yourself, right? No, we're people. Monkeys do this. Animals do this. Dogs. Like, I mean, you with us?
Yeah. You following?
Yeah. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Huh? We can hear
Hello?
you.
Hello.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just a few more minutes here, Slave of Christ, and then we got to wrap up this call.
Okay. I mean, that's all I have to say. If you have,
Oh, cool.
I mean, any kind of response to anything that I say, it will be good.
Okay, well, Tom literally just talked to you. I don't know if you didn't
What's
hear
going
that.
on? No, I want to know, like, what's going on when we're saying stuff?
Yeah, I was listening to you guys, but you still didn't disprove my point. I believe that I won this argument.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Well, I don't know.
You ever see
I'm laughing now too.
Enter
God
the
damn.
Fist?
That was really funny. All right, I'm gonna let you go after that because you know what, Slave of Christ, I think you just won the argument. There you go. You just won. We responded to you and we clarified our positions and we gave counterpoints, but you know, I guess if you just decide that you just won the argument, that's all you got to do.
I want to know. Like, I'm being genuine. I want to know what's happening when we're saying words.
I don't know.
Because we're taking time. That's what I'm thinking about stuff. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
let's take what he said and then say words back, and then he'll respond to what's been said. And the whole time, maybe he catches 3 or 4 at the end and just keeps going.
This is what happens sometimes when you talk to people online. And listen, we went all over the place with this call. I would rather I wish we could have stuck to one thing, just like the last call before, and like really dug into the epistemology of like, why do you have this belief? Where does this come from? And maybe that would have been more productive. But that was also deeply fascinating because Slave of Christ said things to me that no other caller has ever said to me in terms of a Christian perspective, which is, yeah, the Bible's all morality is subjective, but also not, but also I don't know. That was just like I was aghast.
He was having an off night. It's St. Patty's Day.
St. Patty's Day, you know, people having a good time. But yeah, I don't know what to think about morality after that. I don't know. All I know, Tom, is that the reason why I treat you well is because you're made in the image of God, my friend. So keep that in mind.
Bless your
As
heart.
soon as I stop believing that you're made in the image of God, that's it.
You're done.
You're done. That's it. I don't. You're dirt to me. You understand? You're nothing. So anyway, glad we got that established. Look, folks, this is a call-in show. Truth Wanted. There are other call-in shows at the ACA and non-call-in shows that you should definitely check out, and we're going to show some of those to you right now. Nope, never mind. We're not going to show that to you right now because we don't have a promo for it today. Thank you, crew, for letting me know as soon as I gave the announcement there for the promo. That's all right. We're going to move on. Hey, it's St. Patrick's Day, everybody. Apparently, I'm getting my groove on before I've had anything to drink. So that's really fantastic. I will let you know, though, that you should consider being in the Austin area on March 26th because we are going to be having our in-studio shows at the Free Thought Library. We have live broadcasts of Talk Heathen and the Atheist Experience. Talk Heathen will be hosted by Secular Rarity and Christy Powell, and Atheist Experience will be Jim Barrows and Secular Rarity. That's right. Secular Rarity is coming to Texas to hang out with some of us and also be on the shows. So check that out if you're in Austin. And we'd love to see you. Also, if you want to email the show, you can do that. It's truth@atheist-community.org, or you can reach out to the ACA at tv@atheist-community.org and see what's been going on our website at atheist-community.org. Last but not least, before we move on, there is a Facebook group that you should check out. It's run by fans for fans. Go to tiny.cc/FBTWG, and you can interact with other fans of the show. We will not be doing a Discord show today, or at least I will not. Tom may check in on the Discord there, but in the future you should check out the fan run Discord server as well, because there's some fun conversations on there. Tom, you having a good time tonight?
Yeah, it's been fantastic talking to the callers.
Great. Well, we got
and you.
Oh, thanks, Tom. Thank you. We got at least one more call. We'll see if we can get to any others after that. We have James, who's calling in from Washington. James, you are live on Truth Wanted. What's up?
Hey, Dan, Tom, First time
James?
caller, long time listener. I was talking to my neighbor. He's Catholic, and he was, I don't know if he was trying to mess with me, but he's telling me about people that used to live in this house. I guess he's been next door forever. And, it's like, oh, the old lady that lived there, she died in that house. And for me, I was like, yeah, good for her. She, died in the place that she lived forever. But maybe it's because it's a older house, or maybe, I don't know. But sometimes there's noises, and sometimes things are like, I don't remember putting that there, why did this fall? That kind of thing is going on. So I don't know. Should I do some smudging, or how do you rule out ghosts?
Ooh, how do you rule them out? That's interesting. Tom, what do you think?
How do you rule them in? But you're
like
in
that.
Washington, right? There's legal things there that are not in all states. I'm sure things go missing from time to time. That's fine. It's not always ghosts.
Yeah. How do we rule them in? In other words, do we have any definitive way of knowing that it could be a ghost? I mean, I understand that doesn't always happen, even in a lot of things we don't have definitive ways, but do we at least have something that makes it more likely to be a ghost than not, besides just specific things? Is this what they said that somebody died in it, and that's why they think it's a ghost, or why a ghost specifically as opposed to anything else?
Well, I mean, that's what comes to my mind when I'm told that somebody died in the house. He was talking about, because the people that had the house before me, they only last a couple of years before they moved out, and I've been here for a little while. But yeah, just sometimes it's just like, what the heck was that? And I'm going to the back, and the door's open, and I didn't open the door. So I guess.
Do you live with anyone?
That's a good way of looking at it. Well, no, not right now.
Okay. You have any pets?
Not right now.
Okay. Are you you smoking stuff?
Well, not right now.
Okay.
Not right now.
It could be. I don't know. You don't sound like you're just embarking in this world. Sometimes people forget stuff. That could be the case. To go back to it, ruling ghosts in, you gotta come up with as many money that are as plausible as you can. And to my knowledge, they've never actually ruled a ghost in to anything, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing too, right? It's like if you talk about, again, ghost physics, I don't know how it works. Do they have to die in a house in order to be there? Can you die outside of a house and then still haunt things? We don't even know if it was a ghost, what that would even mean, really, right? I guess it just has to be humans. Does it include Neanderthals? Does it include Australopithecus afarensis? I mean, I don't know how far back it goes. I don't know. Is there an idea of a consciousness outside of the body that's non-physical? There's a lot of ideas that also have to be shown to be true in order for ghosts to work, right? And it's just I don't even think we have any of those. I'm kind of on Tom's bent here, which is yeah, we have to rule ghosts in before we can rule ghosts out, right?
Sure. I guess I'm kind of thinking of the there's a social kind of aspect with movies and with television, pushing a narrative. But I mean, I guess it doesn't have to be true just because it gets pushed by one faction or the other. But I mean, there's a lot of different. Is it that we're looking for some way of ancestor worship, or is it don't want to let go of those that we love? But I mean, it's hard to.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what it is sometimes. I think you're right, because it's look, if you've known somebody that has died and you were ever close to that person, people often talk about, oh, it still feels like they're still around somewhere, or they expect to see them just around the corner, and they're not there. Because I don't know, humans, we have the we're very good at building psychological profiles in our head of what people are and how they function in our lives, and when they're not there, there's an absence there. I don't know. I think that's part of it. Sometimes I think we just like a good story. Sometimes I think we think human beings are so powerful that our emotions live on after our deaths and are meaningful in some way because we're self-righteous and we want to think that we're more important than we are. I don't know. I think there's a lot of things that come to mind as to why people believe it. I think sometimes people just think ghosts are just kind of a thing that just kind of happens. There's a ghost, you know, it's just kind of out there, and it's just like rain clouds or grass. It's just a thing that's just kind of out there that you just kind of have to watch out for sometimes. So I don't know. I think it's a hodgepodge of things, right?
Yeah, sure. Tom, do you have?
Yeah, I think you should talk to your neighbor and say, there is a ghost in there. And she talks to me and she said, you're not a very good neighbor. You don't.
That's a strategy too. You could ascribe an intention to the ghost and use it to your advantage. I mean,
okay.
You know.
Well, let me ask you this. I mean, do you think there's any harm if I was to say, not put any weight behind it, but do some kind of ritual, some kind of cleansing, just to make me feel good? I mean, is there harm in doing that?
Ooh, that's a good question. That's a good question.
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
Do what you like. What's the harm? What's the harm? I mean, unless it's harmful.
I think it's different if it's for yourself versus other people. If it's something that's going to make you feel better about something, I think you should go right ahead. But like, let's say there's a kid that believes in something like that. You're talking to a 5-year-old kid that thinks that there's monsters in the closet, and you think that if you do this thing, I don't know, like maybe if it's like monsters or something, I don't know, like.
Well, hold on about that. Hold on. If you're a 5-year-old kid, right? You believe in monsters. Do you need? Do I need to just like sit you and be like, they're just not real? Listen, you'll understand when you got your.
It's true. I mean,
cerebral cortex is for more.
Yeah. I mean, like, I guess I'm wary about magical thinking, right? It's like I don't want a kid to pray for something to happen because they think that they're going to talk to a being that's going to grant them that or something. Like, so by that logic, I also don't want a kid to have a ritual that's going to make them go experience. I don't know, monsters going away or something, or think of that. I mean, like, I guess, I don't know, maybe it isn't that harmful though, because like, I mean, most kids really grow up out of that, I guess, right? But like, I don't know, there's people today that still think if you just say the magic words or think the right thoughts, then the universe will do stuff for you. But maybe that doesn't go away if you tell them, you know, that it doesn't work like that as a kid. I don't know what makes that go away. It's complicated.
It is, but I think your route is the right route because you know I personally have kids, and I don't ever tell them no ghosts are real. Let's do this ritual to get rid of. And actually, monsters haven't come up at all, which is interesting. You know,
maybe because the real monsters are people. You ever thought about that, Tom?
That's what I tell them. Good night.
People like Bernie Sanders, who may have allegedly killed JFK
from the Watchtower. James, what do you know about JFK?
I'm learning things today quite a bit.
This is an educational program.
It is.
Yeah.
Bernard Montgomery Sanders, alleged.
A little bit before my time.
Alleged killer, but no, I get you. I don't know, Tom. This is like the classic. Like, when people are at your grandma's funeral and they say your grandma's in heaven thing, right? It's like what's socially respectable and what's like you being an asshole versus being true, right? Like, I don't know. I like, if it's a kid, I feel like teaching them critical thinking skills at an age where it's appropriate, because if they're truly young enough, they can't actually critically think at all, period, right? But if they're old enough to at least start building on some of those concepts, maybe that's a good time to start introducing them rather than pulling away and saying, okay, here's a magic ritual for you to do. But if it's an adult, I don't know. I also have this idea, Tom, that some people won't ever change their minds. As much as I advocate for changing minds, I think some people are just psychologically sort of obstinate and may never change, and maybe maybe we should work around that instead. Maybe like if you have some person in their home who's been in that home for 60 years and they feel like something is off about it and they want to do a ritual, like who am I to tell them not to do that? Is that an invasion of human liberty at that point? Is that an invasion of religious reason or privacy? I mean, like, yeah, I think it's stupid. I don't think it's real. But what if it really does make him feel better? Then what? Right? I don't know. Do I take that away? That's tough. I don't know. I'm figuring this all out, James. I don't have a good answer for you.
Well, thanks for your input. It's been helpful.
I hope so. Because, like I said, I don't know. I feel like people in the comments are going to say, yes, you should absolutely just knock it all down. Tell them it's bullshit. But and maybe that's true for a lot of cases. But in real life, would I do that? I don't know. I don't know if I would all the time. Sometimes I like to just see it do a magic ritual just to see what happens. You know what I mean? Like maybe there's something to that. I don't know.
Yeah, I had a good buddy that I was talking. I forget what the context was, but I was like, "The rain dances work," and he's like,
Rain
"We don't know."
dances.
Yeah. Like, 'cause I was trying to give an example of something like this thing will not impact that thing, and so I gave him an obvious one. Did rain dances work? He goes, "We don't know. They don't." Like, how do you figure? Like, you can test this pretty easy. We can do the rain dance, but what they do is that they always like, "Oh, you didn't do it right. It was just that one thing you got wrong." I think Helen was talking about this the other week.
Yeah.
Like, it's just you didn't say it in the right tone, and it screws up all that. We got to go kill another crow and let's boil this frog, etc.
Yeah, it's true. Like I guess it does promote. Again, that's the harm of it, right? It does promote bad ways of thinking. It doesn't promote critical thinking. It literally doesn't, right? It's the opposite of critical thinking. So
that said,
yeah.
Do you have any rituals that you do? I mean, think about it. Ritual, a thing you do. Do you high five before you work out?
Yeah, but there are things I do that I think are scientifically shown to benefit. Like if I go to the gym, like I think all evidence points to people who go to the gym can live healthier lives, right? For the most part, broadly speaking, because it does things for your body, right? Like, I don't know, that's a ritual, but I don't know. There's some things that are psychologically stimulating that even if that outside of its context wouldn't do anything for you, because the context is there, it's better for you, right? I'm trying to think of an example. I don't know, hugging your loved ones as opposed to hugging a stranger. Like if you just say, "Oh, a hug makes you feel better." I don't know if I want to hug you right now, Tom, but if it's somebody I love, like that does something different for me, right? So like hugging by itself may not be the key, but it's the context in which that hug is being had matters. So maybe it's more of a contextual psychological thing, like the high five thing you mentioned. I bet if we worked out and we high fived each other, Tom, I'd want to make that a ritual.
Yeah.
After
every time to congratulate ourselves on a great workout together.
Right. I would enjoy that. I would enjoy that. I think that's a good thing. James, any last words before we wrap up this call?
I love the show and keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you, James. Appreciate it. And with that done out of the way, folks, we're getting towards the tail end of the show here. I really want to thank Tom Benson for being on the show with me for a wild journey that we had today. Tom, where can people find you at if they want to see more of you?
Yeah, absolutely. You can visit us on the website, www.howeverwegothere.com or www.howeverwegothere.com. We have both domains.
Yeah. And how often does your stuff come out?
We're a differently demand-only model. So you can visit the website and request an episode, but we are in our second season, 8th year, record every night, 9:30 Eastern on Tuesdays.
Great. Awesome. And thank you again so much for being here. I am, of course, Objectively Dan. If you like Truth Wanted, hey, this is a live call-in show. Happens every single week, Fridays at 7 p.m. Central Time. Sometimes I'm not hosting, but a lot of times I'm here, and we have really fun conversations like we did tonight. So come watch us live if you're listening to this in audio or video form. And we also need to thank the wonderful, amazing, fantastic, stupendous crew that helped make this show happen every single week. There's a crew cam. the folks behind the scenes making the magic happen. Folks, we had some audio issues before the show, but the crew was working on it and made it happen. And we were like, oh man, are they going to do it in time? And they did with like 20 minutes to spare. So it was good. Thanks, guys, for working so hard and doing that. We want to reiterate that we want the truth segment, okay? Which it means to say, look, we have this thing where we are reading your answers each week. The question for this week is wrong answers only. What is the first thing you would do if you came back as a ghost? So comment below if you want your answer potentially read on the show. We're going to pick the next top 3 answers for that. And with that out of the way, folks, that's all I've got. I'm your host, Objectively Dan. And as always, remember to keep wanting the truth. I'll see you next time.
Watch The Non-Prophets and join the hosts in the live chat, Sundays at 3 p.m. Central, between The Atheist Experience and Talk Hidden. Visit tiny.cc/YTNP.